I'm going to bring in Mr. Jason Unruhe. He's a political commentator who comes to you via Skype out of Ontario. Jason, it's good to see you. Tell me what you think about this latest act by the U.S.
Complete and utter, total censorship. And I don't think this can be seen as any other way. I think it's very clear why these specific organizations were attacked by the United States, and that's what this is. It's an attack. If they want to say that they own the .com, okay, so be it. But why now? Why during the JCPOA negotiations are they doing this, and then doing it to other organizations at the same time? I'm sure it's just a sweep. I mean, there's almost like a deliberate provocative act. The fact is, people deserve to be able to see some different information. I mean, we're not talking like the difference between people who know vaccines and people who deny vaccines. We're talking about legitimate disagreement over the way the United States chooses to run itself. But we see this kind of censorship done against the gray zone, any other kinds of independent media. We see this happen all the time, and the fact that they would take down these specific media organizations, or at least restrict the access to them, it definitely does show that it's what's being said is what that they're against. They're against someone giving an alternative viewpoint to what's been going on. In other words, when the media leaves out certain information about what's going on in these wars, about what the U.S. spheres of influence are doing, their collaboration with the Saudis for the genocide in Yemen, the unjust actions of the United States, the U.S. media outright fabricating complete lies about what's going on in Iran, for example, having a source of information which was not only it really is more credible, but is providing a counter narrative, is something that's extremely important to have, and that's what the United States doesn't want. They're trying to silence any dissent. They're trying to silence anyone who disagrees. I mean, the mainstream ruling establishment of the media in the imperialist countries are all on board on the major issues. They may have some disagreements over some domestic things, but in other words, in their hostilities towards the people who are the victims of imperialism, they're all together in line with that. And having that kind of voice does demonstrate that. The fact that they would go so far to take down PressTV and to take down these other organizations it demonstrates that they're afraid of the information that's coming out. If PressTV was insignificant, it didn't matter or anything like that, then the United States government wouldn't bother with it. So I think that this demonstrates they're afraid of the growing influence that alternative media like PressTV is demonstrating, and that one's counter to the ruling establishment in the United States, or at least in most of the imperialist countries.
And how has that worked for them so far? You just actually mentioned it, to some extent, that if channels like PressTV or those other websites hadn't done their job right, why bother? Why would it wouldn't cause a matter for the U.S. How has it really worked so far? Jason, you remember they targeted PressTV just a few months ago on the YouTube platform, and the visitors on the website went up. And right now we are in a time and age that you have different platforms popping up. Is it really helpful to silence you that way when people have different kinds of access to that?
Well, I think that the main question is they don't want PressTV to be heard. And even if you do silence PressTV, take it off YouTube, etc., people are going to go somewhere else. I mean, they don't have any other choice. Silencing PressTV is all they can do because of the information that is coming out of it. Now, there have been multiple studies that show that the trust that people have in the mainstream media is decreasing and has been decreasing for some time. And that has led to the rise in popularity of alternative media, places like PressTV. Censoring PressTV isn't going to accomplish anything because it doesn't deal with the fundamental problem, and that is the distrust the U.S. public has for the mainstream media because of information that has come out that has shown them to be lying in many situations. And I think that's the part that they're not addressing. They can't actually do anything about the lack of credibility that the mainstream media has, because it has mostly just repeated a ruling class narrative and not being able to come up but by hiding many facts. They don't have to so much overtly lie as they frequently do. They just have to leave out certain information. And because people don't trust them, and people, they really don't, whether that be Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, the mainstream media, regardless of its political leanings, people aren't trusting anymore. And they're going to alternative media outlets. Sometimes they're going to, even sometimes a very small independent media, much smaller than PressTV. The fact they're going anywhere to look for this information is because they don't trust their system. And trying to censor that alternate voice only actually proves that the alternate voice is saying something that they don't want you to hear, by virtue of the fact that they're trying to shut it down.
Well, if it's in human nature when you censor something or actually shut it down, the thirst for it will increase. Up to what extent do you think, this is going to be the case for this 36 channels, including that of PressTV? And of course, one more thing, Jason, one of the reasons that has been cited as, as why these websites have been closed or shut or limited is the fact that, they say these channels have been in the work of disinformation. I once talked to one of our guests, and he said disinformation basically means information that the U.S. does not want to see. Do you go along with that? Has PressTV, so far as you're concerned, or other channels for that matter, do you think they have been involved in disinformation? What is disinformation really that, these channels are doing really?
Well, if I thought for a second that PressTV was disinformation, I wouldn't be here right now. I certainly do stand with the majority of the content that comes out with PressTV, mostly because of its resistance to U.S. imperialism that creates victims out of the majority of the people in the world who live in poverty, enforced by an unjust system, whether through economic means or by the barrel of a gun. In either case, it ends up the same. The statement there is correct. The misinformation is literally just the information that that the ruling institutions don't agree with. Like I said previously, there's a difference between someone who denies the science of vaccines and someone who is saying something in counter to the mainstream narrative that is a just and necessary criticism that needs to be made. Criticizing power and showing the parts of it that it hides, showing the crimes that system commits, are absolutely necessary. I believe that's one of the founding principles of the freedom of the press. I believe that's written into the Constitution somewhere. I don't know the exact position, but it's in the freedom of the press is in there, and the fact that they would try to shut down that freedom of the press shows that they are afraid of it, and the harder they censor it, the more people are going to seek it out, because then people know that something significant is being said here. I mean, this isn't like a conspiracy theory channel or anything where someone's spouting nonsense. This is real, legitimate journalism in defiance of the U.S. empire, and that's something that needs to be done, and that is what the United States is afraid of.